Do I have an idea? Of course I do. Am I going to share it with you? No, because again, that's her story to tell.
Her story is now public, despite their best efforts to keep it quiet. Molly Qerim didn't simply leave ESPN after working there for almost 20 years. She is retaliating. This is the secret tale of the abrupt farewell that ESPN never intended you to hear, complete with explosive litigation and startling behind-the-scenes betrayals. After 10 years at the desk and 19 years within the ESPN ecosystem, Molly Qerim, the long-standing presenter of ESPN's flagship debate show, First Take, abruptly announced her departure from the network in a single Instagram story, shocking the sports media community. However, what actually took place here? What caused one of the most well-known personalities in sports broadcasting to abruptly leave? Was this merely a career decision for the individual or a component of a broader change taking place within ESPN and the sports media sector? We must first examine Molly Qerim's identity within the sports media industry in order to comprehend the significance of this departure. In its formal statement, ESPN acknowledged her influence. Molly has been a vital member of ESPN since 2006 and a major contributor to First Take success since becoming host 10 years ago, according to a business statement from Burke Magnus, head of content for ESPN. Magnus continued after that. He emphasized the characteristics that set her apart in the frequently confrontational broadcast landscape. She improved the performance with her professionalism, competence, and poise while being a helpful and supportive colleague to others. We honor Molly's choice. I hope she has a bright future and appreciate her remarkable dedication to ESPN and sports fans every day. It's not simply business speak when a network executive uses phrases like poise, expertise, encouragement, and outstanding daily devotion. It's recognition of a character who, over time, had established themselves as the dependable core of a program characterized by intense arguments and well-known figures. Molly was never just a moderator reading questions on the first try. She wasn't a stand-in. She established herself as a reliable voice who understood when to interrupt and steady the discourse, when to allow space, and when to push back. As her longtime co-worker Stephen A. Smith stated during his own on-air response,
Last night, she abruptly resigned as the host of the show. And to say that I'm quite sad about it is an understatement.
There was a mix of amazement and anguish in those remarks, which were said live on television. The mystery was only heightened by Molly's departure. Millions of fans tuned in every morning, but there was no last episode or on-camera farewell. No protracted changeover. Rather, her Instagram story the previous evening informed fans of her leaving virtually in real time. She wrote, after giving it some thought, I've decided it's time to step away from First Take and close this incredible chapter. She had already left by the time spectators tuned into ESPN the following morning, hoping to see her behind the desk. On his Sirius XM broadcast, Stephen A. Smith later acknowledged that he had not anticipated this.
To be blunt, it came as a shock. I was not aware that this is something that she was contemplating doing, but in the end, she made her decision, and we have to move on as a show.
In television, that degree of abruptness is uncommon. Contracts typically require well-planned departures that might take weeks or even months to prepare. However, it appeared that talks had come to a standstill in this instance. Smith clarified that a contract negotiation was in progress. She ultimately decided to leave the show with immediate effect, even though ESPN did not want to lose her. Early conjecture about what might have been going on behind the scenes was stoked by this aspect of immediacy, leaving a contract offer rather than completing it. The story appears clean on paper. Molly Qerim received a contract offer from ESPN. She turned it down. She turned to go. However, there are rarely clear boundaries in the sports media industry. Rather, it is a world shaped by timing, leverage, and power. Commentators conjectured during a heated podcast discussion about her leaving that ESPN may have crafted her offer in such a way as to coerce her hand. They try to get you to go by making an offer that they know you won't accept. Well, at this point in your career, that's what they usually do. This observation fits a broader pattern at ESPN. One participant stated simply, In the previous few years, the network has experienced major reorganizations and waves of layoffs. Not even well-known on-air personalities have been immune. Indeed, there is conjecture that ESPN's upper management may have determined it was time to switch to more youthful female hosts. The emergence of individuals such as Taylor Rooks and Malika Andrews is a reflection of this change. Commentators' identification of the gender dynamics at work, as one put it, was one of the debate's most illuminating features.
Make your offer that they know you won't take to make you leave. That's typically what they do at this stage in your career.
In other words, women in sports broadcasting usually face an invisible expiry date, whereas men typically live well into their 50s, 60s, and even 70s. The topic of this inequality has come up again since Molly's departure. The man who has undoubtedly represented ESPN for the past 10 years, Stephen A. Smith, expressed his dissatisfaction openly. His homage on First Take itself was sincere, intimate, and expert. He highlighted Molly's compassion and friendship in addition to her function as host. Smith provided viewers with a more in-depth and open look at what was going on during his Sirius XM broadcast. He made it clear that it was Molly's story to tell, so he didn't reveal every detail, but he did share how much he appreciated her contributions.
Gender, it's usually like dudes can be old doing a job, but they often want younger women next to them.
I also think that your sports knowledge is relevant. So you can replace me with a pretty face, but they can't necessarily sit with the fellas and talk sports jargon.
After that, he changed his focus to a more general industry lesson that was based on his personal experiences. Without the leverage to do so, we are unable to determine our own worth. Leverage is the key to business. Smith wasn't only talking about himself in this instance. He was making an oblique reference to Molly's predicament. Even if they are adored, respected, and treasured, leverage ultimately determines the outcome of talks. What do we think of Molly's departure story's first chapter? Then, on the surface, it seems to be about a well-respected host choosing to move on. However, if you look a little closer, you can make out the general contours of a more intricate image. A system that has a track record of rearranging talent. The potential for a contract offer intended to evict Molly rather than retain her. The way networks handle the lifetime of male versus female broadcasters and gendered double standards. Additionally, as job security becomes less secure, the sports media industry is expecting even its best personnel to diversify into podcasts, side projects, and independent endeavors. Molly's departure is somewhat about more than just her. It concerns ESPN's future, the development of sports media, and the difficulties faced by even well-known individuals in a tumultuous sector. And this is just the start. We'll go into more detail regarding the aftermath of her leaving, the reactions of her followers, and the rumors that are circulating about her next move, and how this instance relates to the broader pattern of ESPN celebrities departing for possibilities in other media, as well as the consequences, responses, and industry speculations. The initial response to the announcement of Molly Qerim's departure was immediate and intense. In addition to being shocked by the abrupt departure, fans, co-workers, and media pundits were all taken aback by how well-known Molly had grown on ESPN mornings. You couldn't just tune past her as a host. She participated at the ceremony. Sports highlights, coffee, and Molly setting the table for Stephen A. Smith's most recent feisty opinion. This was First Take's beat. For more than 10 years. Fans therefore wanted answers when she vanished overnight. Much of the early discussion was motivated by this feeling, the need to know the true story behind the official news releases. There were questions even though ESPN said that Molly made the decision to go on her own. The official storyline was clear-cut. The network wished her well when she turned down a contract and made the decision to go on. However, insiders are aware that exits in the sports media frequently have more facets. According to an industry veteran, this might have been a typical push-out situation. As one analyst put it plainly,
it's a hell of a lot easier to have a second job when the first job is made so easy because you're working with somebody that makes it easy for you. And that's what she did for me personally.
Although ESPN is not the only network that engages in this technique, the network has established a reputation for high-profile departures. Over the past 10 years, well-known figures like Jay Hill, Michelle Beadle, Kenny Mayne, and others have unexpectedly left, sometimes due to private contract breaks, and other times in the midst of public debate. But Molly's departure struck in a different way. There were no rumors of tension or discontent before to her departure, in contrast to many of those. On the surface, she had appeared to be doing well. However, her departure occurred at the same time as ESPN kept highlighting up-and-coming female talent, namely Malika Andrews, who has emerged as one of the most well-known faces in the industry. In recent years of the network, this led to awkward but inevitable discussions about whether Molly's performance was the reason she lost out or if a larger trend in the industry, refreshing the faces of on-air talent to cater to younger demographics, was to blame. This is hardly a subtle double standard. Men like Stephen A. Smith, Bob Lee, and Chris Berman have experienced decades of fame without having their age viewed as a barrier. But for women, regardless of their background, reputation, or ability, there is frequently an implicit clock that runs quicker. That viewpoint turned Molly's departure have an impact that goes beyond her specific situation. For a lot of people, it represented the constant reality that female hosts must deal with. No matter how crucial they were to a show's success, their tenure is eventually viewed as interchangeable. Fans also noticed this disparity, pointing out that although Molly's intelligence and composure had made her stand out, her contribution could still be reduced to merely ensuring that the trains ran on schedule while the males in her immediate vicinity took center stage. However, Molly shattered that mold. As her co-workers often noted, she was more than a moderator. She added her weight. She resisted. When arguments threatened to spiral out of control, she exercised power. She made herself indispensable in the process, which is why her departure was so painful. Rearranging talent is nothing new for ESPN, but it's a dangerous bet. The chemistry between hosts is frequently what keeps viewers interested, and Molly has emerged as a crucial component of the first take formula. Commentators noted that personalities in television, particularly sports TV, influence ratings just as much as the actual material. One participant in the roundtable discussion noted,
Make your offer that they know you won't take to make you leave. That's typically what they do at this stage in your career.
it is difficult to replace that position by allowing her to walk or by designing circumstances in such a way that she must walk. ESPN ran the risk of destroying the very bond that has sustained First Take during years of transition, such with Skip Biss's well-publicized departure in 2016. Beyond the conjecture on her reason for leaving, another urgent query soon surfaced. What is Molly going to do next? She might join a competitor network like Fox Sports 1, where her former co-worker Skip Biss now shows Undisputed, according to several fans and commentators. Others proposed that she might capitalize on the expanding podcasting industry by using her personal brand to launch a standalone venture. However, as one observer noted, this change isn't always simple.
He was one of the few people I think that actually was able to leave a footprint on one of these shows where a lot of times it's two dudes arguing with each other and a woman is just there to kind of keep the trains running on time. She actually was able to weigh in.
Put differently, Molly's next course of action might not be as straightforward as entering a different television studio. A different kind of risk-taking is needed for the shift to independent content creation for someone used to the routine and salary of a corporate media employment. Molly's departure is consistent with a much broader trend. ESPN has lost notable talent on several occasions during the last 10 years, sometimes voluntarily and other times not. The list is lengthy. Max Kellerman, Kenny Mayne, Michelle Beadle, Dan Leard, Rachel Nichols, and Jamal Hill, among others. Every departure has made news, and every time, viewers are left wondering if ESPN is losing ground. Its edge by permitting so many well-known figures to walk. According to Stephen A. Smith, the industry has seen significant upheaval. He presented it in this manner on his Somber XXM show.
It's not so easy for somebody to just up and go and start a podcast or start doing these other things. Like, that's just something that may not be in their wheelhouse. Now, desperation or circumstance will make you do those things, but that's just not something that they could just go to another network.
He made the argument that even the most well-known figures in sports media have boundaries. You may be adored. The identity of a performance may even depend on you. But in the end, leverage, which belongs to networks, executives, and changing market trends, is what makes decisions. Therefore, Molly's leaving is about more than just her. It serves as a reminder of how erratic sports media can be overall. Fans' reactions divided into two groups as the news became more widely known. Some agreed with the official story, which presented Molly's departure as a logical step in her career. These admirers showed their appreciation, support, and enthusiasm for her next endeavors. But some were less convinced. They viewed her departure as an example of how corporate media can fire even its most prestigious employees when it makes financial sense. You might observe both of these sentiments manifesting on social media. One group used popular hashtags, such as #ThankYouMolly. What did ESPN do to make her leave? The other person inquired, occasionally directly. The uncertainty surrounding her departure is reflected in this split. Without Molly herself making a definitive statement, fans are also left to read between the lines because of the strict NDAs that ESPN frequently uses. One thing was evident by the time the dust settled. Molly's departure from ESPN was more than a passing remark. Past. A flashpoint was present. It spurred discussions about broadcasting and gender equity. It rekindled discussions over ESPN's approach and if the network's frequent reorganizations are eroding its own brand. Furthermore, it brought up serious concerns about whether even the most adored hosts can ever feel comfortable in their positions. One commenter summed up with a combination of truth and cynicism.